Islam, Islam, Islam. Paradigm shift in the podcast. It's the brother Maurice Pennington Bey and the brother Shay Ray Ill, Moorish master student. Islam. How you doing, Moab?
Islam, all praise be to Allah. All is well. Uh, honors to the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, and honors to the master student, Brother Maurice Pennington Bey. It is an honor, brother, to be here and being industrious and being about the Prophet's work and uplifting for all. And I'm excited about the topic, as usual.
Islam.
As usual.
Hey, I think I feel like this is a needed discussion. I feel like it's a needed discussion
Indeed.
because this particular chapter in the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, is commonly misinterpreted. It's commonly associated with something that I don't think that it is a part of, and I think it's very very
That's right.
important to really understand these divine instructions so that we can best use it. So
Islam.
Islam.
It's going
So
to it's I know I know where you're going with this. The people now see the people probably know that we speak obviously prior to the podcast coming. We don't but we don't do any acting here. So I don't we won't pretend like we didn't know we was going to say and this and the other. But I had a clue that this would go in this direction, right? Because if I believe what you're speaking of is masonry is going to get mentioned here in a minute,
yeah,
and it's really crazy. See, this shows the finite nature of words, where you can basically say one thing and you mean it, but based off of the meanings that people have accepted, you can say that same thing and not mean it. You know what I'm saying? Based off of what people think it is. So, for example, indeed, we are Masons, but indeed, we are not Masons, right? And so when I say we are not Masons, not according to the finite understandings that have been put forth by propaganda, by those who have started these pseudo whatever they are things that people know as Masonry today, with all of the secret earlobe touching and the winking and the G rings and the compass and the square with the G on the ring and the secret organization. No. When I say indeed we're Masons, I mean this from the spirit of that word in antiquity, and of course I'm sure over the course of this discussion we'll get into, well, indeed I'll get into why I say we are and why I say we are not. But yeah, I already knew that was going to come up this, right? But it is an important.
Now, before we even start this discussion, I want to make it understood that the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of said government, but to obey hereby. We are not to make any radical assertions or speak radical against any organized group. We are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. The reason why this discussion is necessary and why it must be had is people, Asiatics in America, they want better conditions for themselves. And whenever they see someone wearing a fez or wearing a turban or wearing a circle seven medallion, they say, hey, that's a Moorish American. When that individual then comes to that person who they see representing the Moorish Science Temple of America and asks them a question pertaining to the Moorish Science Temple of America, whatever answer they receive is gospel. That's what the Moorish Science Temple of America teaches, because the Moorish American said it. Especially if these individuals who they approach are supposed to be officials in the Moorish Science Temple of America. All right. Well, I was watching the podcast, Mo. I was watching the podcast the other day while I was at work. And these brothers was on there, and there was the brother Sharif Anil Bey, who, he put it out there, he's a Mason. Him and Simone, they Mason Islam. But then the host of the podcast asked him, do he believe that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was a Mason? And he said yes. Okay, you can believe what you want. But then the host asked him, did he have proof? And he said yes. So the host was like, man, hey, what's the proof? He said, I'm going to give it to you. He said, we have an interview. And he said the brother name who they had interviewed and said this brother was a member with the Prophet Noble Drew Ali in the Canaanite temple in New Jersey. And they asked him if he knew the Prophet Noble Drew Ali before the Moorish Science Temple of America. And the brother said, yes, he knew the Prophet Noble Drew Ali from the lodge. Now, this is what he offers up as proof that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was, he said, a Mason and an Odd Fellow. The Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America said, if you having no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, then you do not know, you simply guess. You simply guess. So as members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, I ain't gonna offer up no proof and say Shay Ray Eel told me so. And that's my proof of this particular thing, and that's all I got. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, investigate even I, your prophet. Now, it's very, very important, Mo, because we got to keep it in perspective. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali tells us that all members must promptly attend their meeting and become a part and a parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. You can never tell someone to do something that you have never done. This is what the Holy Koran says. So if the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is asking us in the law to obey his law and be faithful, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali must first be faithful himself. Ain't that right, Mo?
Islam.
Ain't that right? Okay, so if the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was ever the member of a lodge, Mo, he would have stayed a member of the lodge. All right? He wouldn't have left at the age of 27 and started his own movement. He wouldn't have did that. He would have stayed a member of the lodge. Now we got to keep this in proper perspective. The Moorish Science Temple of America started in Newark, New Jersey in 1913 AD, 111 years ago. So how old was this man who y'all interviewed? How old was he? 130 something? Come on, Lord. Let's keep this stuff in this proper perspective. Okay, so now with that being the case, one's always turn to chapter 25, which says specific the symbolic meaning of carpenter's tools. In some type of way, they get masonry out of this. It don't say masonry.
Well, Islam, a lot of our people have been introduced to some of these things by those who aren't necessarily following, the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And so what they do is when they are blessed to come in contact with the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, like most of us, we bring our understanding. We come as we are. Right. That which is, we come as we are. The objective is to come as you are, but not leave as you came. Right. But what happens is we come as we are, and we bring our isms and our schisms and things of that nature that are usually attached to a lack of study. We bring those with us. And instead of coming as we are with an intent to correct ourselves, sometimes we come as we are, and you better be talking about whatever it is you're talking about in a manner that already matches up with whoever I am at this time, or else there's a discrepancy. So we start to fit the description of the fool that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali describes in chapter 26 when he says, the fool knows of all things but his own ignorance. And then we'll even boast of information that we personally don't know anything about. Like you just said, Pennington Bey, you know, we think we know because so-and-so said so, and so-and-so sounded really smart, and he had on a stethoscope, and he had a plaque on the wall, you know what I'm saying? So all of his enzymes and his title and his fame, you know what I'm saying, and his ability to wow me with what I don't understand, that made it so. And so what happens is they start boasting of the attainment of this information, but where it is a sin to be ignorant, there they have no understanding, right? They boast of attainment of things that have no worth. So here we are now with, you know, signs and symbols of a faith, of a religion that has been here since time never was, maybe under different names, maybe practiced in different ways, because although Islam is universal, when it comes to a nation, it's always cultural, you know what I mean, so that it can meet your particulars. And so here we are with this. And so since people have heard something about a compass, they've heard something about a square and things of that nature, they start to naturally try to connect these these imaginary dots between what they've believed and the truth that is trying to introduce itself to them. And so it's important that people understand certain rudiments, certain fundamental principles, so that they can come out from underneath the falsehood more. And that's what we're here to do this evening. Okay. You know, man comprehends the inner life by what they see and do. And when I say what they see, I not only do I mean all of the senses, but I also mean what they see within. For example, like I was saying earlier today in Sunday school, I believe, you know, sometimes somebody can be explaining something to you that you have no clue about before the conversation started. Like maybe someone wants to explain to you brain surgery. And so you might not understand things, but then they start to make analogies and similes and things so that you'll understand how this connects to that, and this is necessary first, or else that would shut down. And before you know it, if they're skilled in conveying their understandings, you say, what? I see what you're saying now, right? And so what that means is I am now grasping, you know, a working idea. And so today, you know, the hope is to clear up a couple of misconceptions by speaking truth to falsehood. Okay. And so here we are, we're talking about tools and things of that nature. And, you know, a lot of Moors don't realize this. Awareness of nationality without a knowledge of self puts the Moors in a perfect position to be easy prey for the pretend wise. Okay. And so we have to be ever vigilant and studying the self to comprehensive things. When you're in the Moorish Science Temple of America, one of the things you may come to understand is this. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali began to uplift the Moorish Americans by teaching them to be themselves. Therefore, it is my understanding at this time that whatever the Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought us is about us. And so it's up to us to connect those dots now. So when we talk about secrecy and things of that nature, especially dealing with Masonry and all that, if you look at the character of this thing they call Masonry today, okay, and it could be Masonry, whatever. There's so many different ways to look at this, all right, because we got Masons that deal with actual stones and things of that nature, and we got Masons that are parts of secret societies, so it seems, and then we had those ancient ones who today are being called Masons, but people don't understand what they truly were, because this phony thing, and I don't mean to speak radical. When I say, just as the Moor has already stated, we do not speak radical when making our public speeches. And when I say radical, I mean undisciplined and in an unprincipled manner. So when I use a term like phony, I mean that by the definition of the word. Because you have people, like you say, Moore, walking around, not just calling themselves Masons, but wearing the enzymes of a Moorish American Muslim.
That's right.
Okay. That's where the problem comes in. Islam. That's where the problem comes in. And that's where, you know what I mean, brothers like yourself, as a master, a student, and things of that nature, and brothers like myself, we need to, with the time allotted, try to breathe the truth to the falsehood.
I want to demonstrate this. Okay. Masonry. Let's deal with the facts. Our ancestors, developed methods for teaching people to not just be themselves, because that's how the prophet began to uplift the Moorish Americans, by teaching them to be themselves. And then he taught us to better ourselves. All right. So when we get to chapter number 5, it gets into the teaching one to better themselves. All right. In chapter 4, we learned to clean ourselves. We learned that we needed to be cleansed. Okay. We learned that they who thus are cleansed comprise the temple of purity. Okay. Reform and wash. Okay. Now we learn to better ourselves. And he takes us into the workshop of the mind where things are made of thought. And he says that there are tools there that we handle. So he's telling us that the mind can be utilized. It can be used the same way that the hands can be utilized and used. Okay. Now, masonry. Masons are builders. Okay. True. Everybody say, man, they're builders. They're builders. You know, they build with stone. You are exactly right. Now, let me show you something very important. Because the prophet Noble Ali said, every word I speak is spirit. It's spirit. Masons build. They work on the outside. They build structures. But who goes on the inside and do the work inside? The carpenters go inside and do the work inside. All right? Men comprehend the inner life by what they see and do. When the prophet Jesus was working with them tools, he observed them and he said, these remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind on the inside. So it's not by accident that there is a difference here. And it's not by accident that the Asiatics in America needed to do some work on the inside. All right. So we need some carpenters to go inside and fix up the house, straighten up the crooked places of the way, to make the character of the conduct square. Okay. See, this is important. And when one is observing the Moorish Science of America and our lessons, thinking that they are seeing something else, they need to go back to chapter number 1 and read the instruction where the prophet Noble Ali tells us that no finite mind can comprehend things infinite. He's telling you right then and there how you approach learning Moorish science. You have to come with an open mind completely. What did Jesus say? The Allah I speak about is everywhere. He cannot be encompassed with walls, nor heads devoured by bounds of any kind. So we have to be forever vigilant, looking up, down, around, everywhere on the inside. Okay? So first and foremost, let's understand that there is a reason, okay, that this particular degree is here where it is in the Holy Koran. It's right where it's supposed to be, and it teaches what's needed. Okay, there is a workshop in the mind, and we are in the mind in this workshop building up character. We're not building towers, we're building character, because character-free national standards and power make the man and the nation. It's not how he look on the outside, it's what he is on the inside. All right. So first and foremost, let's understand that part.
Well, Islam, and you know, and well said, well spoken, brother. I'm gonna expound a little on, I mean, based on my travels, how some have come to mistake, right? Because it's truly a mistake. Meaning you looked at it, you thought it was something that you thought it was what you saw it was, but it was a mistake. Okay. I'm going to expound a little on how people have mistaken the prophet Noble Drew Ali as being this modern day Mason, okay, by speaking a little to the science of Masonry, not just the external, but the inner, the gnosis, since we're talking about inner things, okay. Indeed, ours is to carry on the works of Jesus, just as the prophet Noble Drew Ali does. Indeed, and Jesus was known from a parable standpoint to be a carpenter. Now, Do I have reason to believe that it's possible that a man walked the planet with the name Jesus, even though I believe the letter J came after? But do I believe that it's possible that a man walked the planet with the name Jesus and he did, in fact, cut down trees, whittle them out, and make benches and homes and things of that nature? It stands to reason. It stands to reason. But now when I start to consider things for the sake of extracting saving power, I have to raise my thoughts to infinite wisdom. All right, number one. Now, in order for me to start gaining an idea that I might form into other ideas, I grab these ideas based off of my senses. So I can I can remember visually seeing a carpenter. I can remember some things about masonry and things of that nature, those who build with stonework and stuff, right? So so let me explain it this way, right? So indeed, we have to do what the prophet Jesus was doing, building structures, right? However, what the Moors of North America were going through, it wasn't so much that we weren't attempting to build a structure. The problem was that we were, even those of us who started waking up, we were building our structures on top of the equivalent of sand, okay? And as some might know, when the wind blows, the sand starts shifting and moving around. So what wonder then that the structure falls over? And so before you know it, you end up in a state of hopelessness because, I've tried and these things just don't work out. Maybe it's true. Maybe, we're just supposed to be in this condition. Wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, in walks the prophet Noble Drew Ali, indeed to continue the works of Jesus of Nazareth, indeed, right? To continue the works of the prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Right? And this is the thing, though. What did the Moorish Americans lack that really had to have a lot of attention paid to it? Well, because of the legacy of physical slavery, which is mental slavery, we had something torn out, so to speak, during the seasoning process, during the morphing into being slaves instead of God, men, and women, right? And so what was torn out was the foundation upon which a prophet like Jesus would have put his structure, right? And so this foundation, the Moorish Americans understand that to be the rock or a stone, so to speak, okay? The foundation of a Moorish American Muslim is the Moorish American Muslim's understanding. And so with a faulty understanding, it doesn't really matter how beautiful the structure is you build on top of that. It's going to be similar to building it on sand. And when the wind blows, some of the foundation goes with it. And after time, what wonder then that it crumbles? So when you're dealing with laying a rock, a foundation stone, you use something and you want to make sure that people understand how this stone is created and placed and things of that nature, and you start talking about its symmetry and things of that nature, you might use, now see, here we go with the pretend wise. You might be able to explain and make sense of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali being a Mason, but by improper terms. A Mason in those times was one skilled in making perfectly symmetrical blocks. However, when we start to think about these stones and things of that nature, we're thinking about a mental foundation. We're not talking about somebody bound to secrecy, where come to find out the secret is yourself. Imagine the Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaching people to be themselves, their God selves, but also being a part of an organization that is bound to hide these truths, except for the chosen few, right? So when we're talking about masonry, we're talking about someone who was an artisan, someone who is skilled in the manual arts, all right? And when I say manual arts, you'll see Manu and L sitting there. Some would say AL, but EL is the same. Manual arts, all right? And what does that mean? When you talk about Manu is the hand, which in ancient times when they were teaching, the hand was always symbolic of the mind, because the hand does what the mind does. It grasps, it releases, it formulates, it tears down, It holds up, right? So the Manu, which was the hand, was symbolic of the mental hand, and the El was the God. So we're talking about not just a hand, but the hand of the Creator. Okay, and so when we're talking about building, we're talking about building from that standpoint. So when we're saying someone's skilled in the manual arts, such as masonry, we're talking about someone who's skilled in building godlike foundations of a mind upon which the temple of perfected man can stand. Right? These are some of the misunderstandings that Moors, or these are some of the instructions that a lot of people that are knee deep in the masonry things, they're not receiving these types of what's the word I'm looking for? Revelatory instructions. Okay. So when people are accusing the Prophet Noble Drew Ali as being a Mason, most of them are talking about the secret societies. They're not talking about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was one to assist man in laying mental foundations with perfectly symmetrical blocks, aka with great understandings. This is not what they understand. Islam.
And then the Prophet Noble Drew Ali never said that we were Moorish carpenters. He never said we don't run around and say, hey, we're carpenters, because we are Moorish scientists. All right. Now let me show you what that means. Because there's a Moorish scientist in the Masonic myth. There's a Moorish scientist there. Someone skilled in all forms of craft. Okay. According to the myth, Solomon, he contacted the king of Tyre, didn't he? And he asked him to send someone to help him build the temple that he was dedicating to Allah. And he sent Hiram Abiff. Okay. Now, nowhere here does it say that Hiram Abiff was a Mason. It says that he was skilled in all types of crafts. Okay.
That's right.
So Hiram Abiff, he comes, he helps him build the temple. He helps Solomon, and he helped Solomon's Masons build the temple. And what happened to him in return? What happened to him in return? 3 master Masons, 3 Masons.
That's right. That's right.
What they do?
Jubilee,
they killed him.
And Jubilee, I believe.
And they killed him. They killed because they asked him to give them something that cannot be given. Right? They said, give us something that can't be given. They said, give us the word. Now, the book tells us that in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. This is not something that you can give. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that those who are slaves to sin, they can't use they can't use the name. All right, you can't give this. I can't give you this. You have to earn it. You see what I'm saying? But when they killed him, they never got the word, Mo. He never gave it to him. He never gave it to him, which means they never got it. So then we get our Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, in which it says that the key to civilization is in the hand of the Asiatics. Okay? The key to civilization is in the hand of the Asiatics. More civilization. And I talked about this Friday at Holy Day. Civilization is a state of mind. It is a state of mind. You know, to be civilized. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali gave us 5 fundamental principles that he said were to civilize our posterity. Okay? So all of these things are important. All of these things are important. You know, we are Moorish scientists. Inside of the Moorish Science Temple of America, there are an unlimited amount of degrees to be learned. Masonry is 1 degree. Masonry as an art, as a craft, not as an institution. Let them Masons have their lives. We have Allah sent us a whole entire prophet. We have the Moorish Science Temple of America, and we have Moorish Science, and we are Moorish scientists. At least we should be. All right. Let's get into this chapter, though, Mo. Okay. It's a lot more here than just the tools. Okay, there's a lot going on inside of this chapter right here. There's a lot going on in it. So I think this is the first time we ever did this on the podcast. Just go in and break down the chapter from the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Somebody said it sounds distorted. The internet ain't acting up. All right. So it says, after the feast, the homeward journey, the missing Jesus, the search for him, His parents find him in the temple. He goes with them to Nazareth, symbolic meaning of carpenter's tools. Islam. It says the
Islam.
great feast of Pentecost was ended, and the Nazarenes were journeying toward their homes. And they were in Samaria. And Mary said, "Where is my son? No one has seen the boy." And Joseph saw them among their kindred, who were on their way to Galilee, but they had seen him not. Then Joseph, Mary, and the son of Zebedee returned and sought through all Jerusalem, but could find him not. And Mary asked the guards, had they seen Jesus, a little boy about 12 years old? The guards replied, "Yes, he is in the temple now disputing with the doctors of the law." Islam. So one of the things that, that I find important that jumped out to me later on, I mean, in my latter years of studying this chapter, was the son of Zebedee. Okay. The son of Zebedee leaps off the page. And then when we study the Gospels of Jesus the Christ in the Bible, Prophet Ali said that it's our Bible. So when we study the Gospels, we discover that the son of Zebedee is John, the Revelator. All right. Now, when Jesus was on the cross, he looks down at John and he looks down at his mother Mary and he says, "Mother, behold your son. Brother, behold your mother." Okay, now this is deep, Mo. This is deep. It shows a connection. The Prophet Noble Ali talks to us about the bonds of affection. Jesus spoke to ones in India about the brotherhood of life. You don't just turn your mother over to the care of anybody. You understand what I'm saying? He didn't look down upon all of his disciples. He looked down upon this one. And he told him, "Brother, behold your mother." That jumped off the page to me. It said to me that these are the type of, when we talking about building, these are the type of relationships that we in the Moorish Science Temple of America need to seek to develop and build with one another. You understand me?
That's right.
So that was one thing that jumped out to me while we talking about building.
Islam. There was something that jumped out. I think you just got to this part. The guards. It says the guards replied, "He is in the temple now, disputing with the doctors of the law." One of the things we have to remember again, based off of some of my reasoning and methods of contributing to my expansion of understanding and awareness. I like to look into the nature of some of these words. But I view these chapters like the Prophet Noble Ali is speaking to me, and he uses these things in order to speak. So when we're talking about Jesus, first and foremost, as the Moorish American Muslims understand, Jesus means justice, and justice is an attribute of the great God Allah. And chapter 1 clearly reveals that all of the attributes of the great God Allah are in me. So when you're talking about Jesus, you're also talking about a part of me. So what is necessary in this new era of time now? Well, what does Jesus or justice or that part of you do? When functioning properly, what would it do? Well, right here, number 6, it says, the guard says, "Yes, he is in the temple now disputing with the doctors of the law." When we're talking about disputing, we're talking about calling in question. Calling in question. So one of the things we understand, or I come to understand now, is that Jesus or justice is not something that just goes along just because. It calls into question the authenticity, the authority. It questions. Our people were trained not to question anything. There's a method handed down from slaveholders to great-great-great-grandmama, to great-great-grandmama, to great-grandmama, to grandmama, to our mothers, where at some point, if she said to move, you weren't allowed to question. You remember that? You do it because I said so. And so we got some things that are being handed down. But in here, it lets you know that justice, because Jesus means justice, and this is a story about Jesus. Justice disputes, means calls into question movements that are supposed to be according to law, which is wise, because whenever you're getting ideas from within yourself, there'll be two selves talking, and you need to understand which self is which. And according to what law, you know what I'm saying? According to whose authority do you give me suggestions on what to do with one of the greatest gifts given to me by Allah, which is my will, right? And so when it says that Jesus is in the temple disputing with the doctors of law, right? A doctor, as it pertains to this particular instruction, a doctor is one who revises, alters, tampers with. So now I'm talking about the verb. So the doctors of law, those who revise, alter, tamper with. So we're talking about man, because that's who doctors the law. That's who interprets the law, right? With their understandings and their finite understandings and their finite beliefs. You know what I mean? We put our schism on it, and then before you know it, it has been tampered with in some shape, form, or fashion. So we have to call into question some of these things, some of these intentions, things of that nature, prior to us either following or prior to us giving our understanding for the sake of correcting some things. So that kind of jumps out with me too, is if Jesus would call into question the doctors of the law, then it is in my nature to at least call to question, you know, and examine. When you call something into question, brother, all you're doing is studying, and that's law for a Moorish American Muslim. You can find that at chapter 3, instruction 14. It's law that we inquire into, investigate, research, examine, analyze in order to gain a gnosis of things. So indeed, this is it's natural for us to question Islam.
And at that time, the doctors of the law, they had names, the Sadducees and the Pharisees of that time. All right, I'll never forget, when I first joined the Moorish Science Temple of America, and this was, pointed out to me. And brother named Carpenter, he said, you never forget the Sadducees. You understand what I'm saying? The Sadducees. And these ones had, they had made it almost impossible for ones to actually, practice religion, because they were teaching them, hey, you got to be perfect, and if you're not perfect, then God is going to punish you. He's going to send you to a place called hell. They was doing things, that made religion, they were turning the people away from religion. Things like adopting, the customs of idol worshipers from other lands, like the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America teaches us. They had adopted customs from idol worshipers of other lands. And these same idol worshipers, whom customs that they had adopted, had placed an iron hand of oppression upon them. And it was through the customs that they was able to control them. So the prophet Jesus, now he goes to dispute with these ones about these customs. He goes to dispute with these ones about how they are teaching the people that they must behave according to the scripture that came from God. And when we look at our ancestors, those of our ancestors that were on those plantations, who had Europeans holding Bibles in their hands and preaching to them, but none of the things, or very little of the things that they were saying out of their mouth, actually came out of the book. So we have to call these things into question. And if justice in its not even fully mature stage can understand that these things must be called into question in order that we might create peace, then we need to understand that we need to call these things that disturb our peace into question. We need to be active and participate in the governing of ourselves. This is what we see happening here.
And if we would call into question some of the laws, our personal principle, because the word principle is a law too, right? And so if we would call into question some of these laws, and also let's look at what laws do. Laws govern. They dictate your movements. They dictate that you don't move. They dictate that when you move, how you move, so forth and so on. The laws govern actions, right? Words, deeds, so forth and so on. So if we are moving, we're moving according to a law. Now, are you moving according to the laws of the higher self, or are you moving according to the nature and law of the lower self? Okay. And so when we're saying call into question, you got to understand your understanding doctored the law. So you have to reflect and be willing to actually call your own self into that mental courtroom. You have to, this is what reflection is about. Because at the end of the day, you know, the worst enemy of man is the self, right? Right. Some of my worst ideas, I don't care what anybody said outside of me. I pulled their talk, I pulled it into my mind, started mulling it over, and came up with my own best idea, even if it was in the image and after the likeness of what they said. At the end of the day, I came up with the idea that I was willing to move according to. So we have to be very careful, be prepared to call yourself into that room and see which self you're following. Because people, places, and things outside of you, man, they really serve to represent, or they might serve as a tool for one of those selves. But you need to understand that which one, all right? Because sometimes when we get to doctrine, the laws, and things of that nature, with our understandings and finite human knowledge and so forth and so on, this is why we have to keep reevaluating it. So call it into question. That's number one. Islam. And of course, you'll find that in chapter 15. When Jesus goes into the wilderness to be alone with himself and speak with Allah, and he receives a suggestion while in this meditative, reflective state. And the first thing he does isn't follow the suggestion. The first thing he does is he questions. He calls into question, first of all, who is it? Because if it's the lower self that's talking to me, I know that whatever your words are, it breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. So I've got to call into question, under whose authority? Islam.
All right. So now he said, and they went in and found him as the guard had said. And Mary said, why, Jesus? Why do you treat your parents thus? Lo, we have sought 2 days for you. We feared that some great harm had overtaken you. And Jesus said, do you not know that I must be about my Father's work? He said, do you not know that I must be about my Father's work? For 2 days. For 2 days. You see, Jesus was resolute about what he felt was right and what he knew was the truth. And he wasn't going to give up on that. He was in there disputing with them people for 2 days. Or maybe he traveled for a day and a half to get there before he could dispute with these people. But he was diligent about it. The Prophet Noble Ali tells us that we need to be industrious. We need to be diligent about doing this work for our people, uplifting fallen humanity, building up the best type of character, being our best self, studying and learning these truths. You know, raising our children and making sure that our children get the best of us so that the best part of them can be developed and that they can grow and unfold as does the bud unfold to show the flower. And this is what we see. And I got to point it out again. 12 years old, Mo. 12 years old, not yet fully mature. Not yet fully mature, but displaying so much wisdom. You understand me? So much selfless wisdom. Because he wasn't in there disputing with them just so he could have something for his own selfish self. He was in there disputing with them in order to make conditions better for all of the people, Mo. You understand me? That's and right. He was risking his life to do it. Now that goes to show that he understood something else. That there is no death to the human soul. There is nothing to fear here. There is nothing to fear here. He said, do you not know that I must be about my Father's work? He knew that he was protected. You understand me? We have to, adopt the same type of approach. Or we should. We should learn it. We should learn to adopt that same type of approach.
It says so even in the Bible. I believe it's John 5:17. My Father is always working, and so am I. The Father is always working, and so am I. by any means necessary. This right here shows something, because the first thing you don't do, we're talking, we have to look at the nature of the story. The first thing you don't do is you don't disobey or act without, the permission of your parents. That's number one, right? And so what we're seeing here by this move that he's made is Jesus, it is the justice in a man that would have them act. It is a justice in a woman that would have her act according to the will of the great God, Allah, even if it wasn't necessarily something that the parent told them to go do. You see what I'm saying? Because, over here, if mom, dad don't say it, then that isn't really something that we get on. But by inspiration, meaning by something that is innate, something from within yourself that speaks to you and tells you this is what needs to be done. By any means, this is what has to be done. So we have somebody that says, look, man, I'm being about my Father's work. If I'm not mistaken, is he speaking to his father and mother, saying that he's being about his Father's work?
Islam.
There's an implication. There's an implication here.
It sure is.
Okay.
It sure is.
Islam.
I want to take a read.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
It says, may the blessings of the God of our Father, Allah, be upon you that carry this card. The Prophet Noble Ali teaches us that Allah is the Father of the universe.
That's right.
He is all of our Father. All right? So Jesus understood this as a child. And you know something else, Mo? You know who taught it to him? His mother.
That's right.
We must not forget the education of Mary and Elizabeth in Zone Egypt. An education that was given, that was passed down to them, that they then passed down to their children. And you must teach your sons to set their souls on fire with love and holy zeal. Okay? Jesus knew who he was because his mother had communicated this to him his entire life. So that's why he said to her, do you not know that I must be about my Father's work? While at the same time, he's finna show a maturity right here that's shocking coming from a child in these next couple, in this next instruction. Okay?
Islam.
But he went round and pressed the hand of every doctor of the law and said, I trust that we meet again. Okay? Because he had to relieve the stress from his mother. He understood that she had to be nervous. She had to be. She know that he must be about his Father's work, but that's her baby. He knew who he was in her eyesight, while at the same time, he knew who he was and he knew what his mission was. But in the Bible, there's a part of the Bible where where Mary comes to him and she says to him that the people want wine. She had been telling the people all about his wine. And what did he say? He said, woman, my hour has not yet come. So even then he understood, even though he was there disputing with the doctors of the law, his hour had not yet come. All right. So he went around and he pressed the hand of every doctor of the law and said, I trust that we meet again. He gave them a sign by which they would know one another when they come in contact with one another again. All right. The origin of the hand press of unity. Because his desire was not to beef with these individuals. He wasn't going to eternally be at war with them. He was trying to make peace and try to get them to understand truth.
Yeah, this was about corrective surgery.
That's right. That's right. He didn't come to them, with malicious feelings or malicious intent. He came to them because guess what? They had all studied the same scripture. These are the Sadducees and the Pharisees. And as a child, in his innocence, he came to them hoping and praying that he would be able to get them to see the truth. And he left them still desiring to one day have them to see the truth. I trust that we meet again. You understand me? The Prophet Muhammad later tells us You know, Allah tells us later through the Prophet Muhammad that we must do what? Debate in the best of manners. This is why I don't debate with nobody, Mo. This is why I don't debate with nobody, because ones don't want to follow these instructions. Okay? And then it don't get us nowhere. You know, so I don't do that. You know, I'm
That's
like
right.
this. Let's build together. Let's study. See, I'm open-minded. I'm willing to change my mind because that's what wise men do. They change their mind. You know, so Jesus was here hoping and praying that wisdom would come and visit these individuals. You know, so that's
Islam.
a maturity right there. You know, coming from someone 12 years old, man. 12 years old. That's incredible. Love.
Islam. And
And then and then he went forth with his parents on their way to Nazareth. And when they reached their home, he wrote with Joseph as a carpenter, and the learning begins.
now more. Here's this is where the comprehension is very important here. Okay, again, I have no reason to believe that the young man didn't necessarily work with his father in building physical wooden objects. I have no reason to believe that that's not possible. Okay, that's reasonable. Now, what I feed off of and extract saving power from isn't necessarily the thought that, hey, and Jesus could build wooden benches. So I don't feed off of that. I feed off of something else, right? So first and foremost here we have, he wrought with Joseph as a carpenter in the manner of, like, maybe not literally, but like, right? And so, and when we're talking about a carpenter, obviously we're talking about as someone whose job it is to assist in building the structures for man, right? In building the structure for man. If you would assist somebody in creating structure in their life, you could easily be referred to as a carpenter. Islam.
Right.
If you would assist somebody, and not just any sort of structure, but a dwelling place that has a room in it where you go to wash the body, symbolic of purification, that has a room in it where you go in order to cook up the foods that you consume in order to receive your vital nutrients and nourishments, that has a room in it where you can rest yourself, that has a room in it where you receive, you know what I mean, certain types of learning and things of that nature. So he was one who helped to build, dwellings for man. And here's how he learned to do so, Islam.
I want to show the people something. That's why I had to cut the virtual background though. I want to show the people something, right? You know, I have a job. Yeah. Maurice Pennington Bey, you know, we have to go to work. I go to work every day, right? You know, and these are some of the tools I use at work. I use this impact drill. I use this level. I have to use this 20. It's a 20-in-1 screwdriver. I use this. You know. So these tools, these are tools that are commonly used by construction workers. Okay, but I'm not a construction worker. I am an electrician. All right, I am an electrician. I don't know nothing about construction work, but I use these tools. Okay, so one would see my tool bag and see some of the tools in my tool bag, and easily they would think of, you know, what's most common when you see these tools. All right, but again, I'm an electrician. I'm not a construction worker. That's not what I do professionally. Okay, so now one thing about our ancestors, you have a term, exoteric, and you have another term, esoteric. All right.
That's right.
Now, exoterically, that's the things that we know about what goes on the outside. So our ancestors had this methodology, the way that they taught. You know, when they ones would come to the temple for education, and if they were studying masonry, which is a degree that is taught, all right, this is one of the sciences. If they were studying masonry, then they would have to learn the way that the Masons utilize the tools. And exoterically, they would physically have to gather a working comprehension of these tools. Okay, because understanding the way they work actually and physically, it makes us comprehend how they can then be worked mentally. Okay, it's the same thing in the Moorish Science Temple of America. When we go over this particular chapter in Sunday school, it's very common for us to either pull out a square and give an example of how the square works, or if there's a whiteboard, to draw a square on the board so that visually the students in the classroom can see how the tool works. Okay, so Jesus working with his father as a carpenter to gather a real comprehension of how these tools actually work. He swiftly recognized how they work on the inside in the workshop of the mind, which again is amazing. 12 years old, huh? 12 years old. Now I bear witness that this is how true. I just got done teaching for the first time. All praise is due to Allah. And it felt so good for the first time to teach some young people more science, have a Quran class, and to communicate these lessons to young people in the way that they was grasping these lessons. And I'm asking questions and the answers that they was giving back. Mo, I feel like the doggone, I feel like I was in Orisha. Like I was standing back watching priests, questioning the prophet Jesus and marveling at his response, at the clear conception of the child.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? But this is a methodology that was used by our ancestors, to demonstrate the measure exoterically, so that one can really see and feel. The Prophet Noble Ali says what about Sunday school? He said the teacher must confirm himself to the questionary and let every member exercise his 5 senses who is able to do so. Because this will help us to really, really get a working understanding of these concepts. So now when we start to lay down and we start to meditate upon them, we can actually visualize the work that they are doing. We could visualize the execution of the instructions. When certain circumstances happen, when conditions change, we can adapt to meet those conditions with the instruction that's needed. The same way, you got to use the proper tool. You can't stand up on a screwdriver if you want to reach a higher height. You got to use a ladder. So that's the way I see Jesus working with his father as the carpenter. Because Joseph had to be a part of the educational process of his child too. Mary did her part early on, but then it was time for his dad to step in and to do his part in educating his son. Before his son went along his travels where he could learn more so that ultimately he can go about his ministry. It's the same way with all of us in the Moorish Science Temple of America. The majority of us, throughout the course of our careers here, we've had a multitude of teachers. The reason why I call myself a master student is because I submit myself to learning from anything that's teaching. And did you hear what I said? Anything. I mean, any living thing, anything. If anything that I see that I can glean information from that's going to benefit me, then I need that information. I'm going to humble myself to it. You know what I mean? Because I learned, just from having so many different Sunday school teachers, so many good men, so many good women over the course of my life instruct me. And then when I was able to call their instructions into action, I benefited. So I'm like, man, I need as many advantages as I can get. So yeah, that's what I gathered. That's what I gathered from it. I think they was gonna marry me away. And they really did have some joints, some blocks, some boards, some saws, and some axes, and some compasses, and some squares in the backyard. And Joseph did teach his son this particular craft. It was one of many lessons that the father did. Now I don't think he made a
so as well.
I don't think he made a career out of it.
And it's the thing, this is why I don't disagree with some of the literal forms of what we have, but I do stress, a need for like you said, there's esoteric and then there's exoteric. And so, I do stress the esoteric part, the inner meanings, because I believe that it is there where we gain a gnosis, a deeper knowledge and understanding of things. This is where we actually bite into, the fruit of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's labor and put ourselves in a position to absorb, that which is vital and nutritious. Because a lot of times when we stay on the surface, it's used for debate and not too much more, because people are actually just arguing over, if the records are correct, as opposed to consuming the food, Islam. So, indeed.
Islam. Okay.
Okay.
He says, one day as he was bringing forth the tools for work, he said, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind, where things are made of thought and where we build up character. All right. So I remember when I first looked up the word no. I had just joined the Moorish Science Temple of America, and one of the first books that I bought when I joined the Moorish Science Temple of America was a dictionary. Because my vocabulary was shot, and I was trying to study and learn more science and read the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and there was just so many words in here that I didn't know. So I bought a dictionary. I bought me American Heritage Fourth Edition. All right. At the time, it was the newest American Heritage Dictionary, and I looked up the word no, and one of the definitions that I take it with me now everywhere I go. It said that to know means to grasp with the mind, to take hold of with the mind, and it goes back to what you said. How our ancestors symbolically seen the hand as an extension of the mind. Where it picks things up and it
That's
puts
right.
things back. Okay. So now when I look at this particular instruction and I see that Jesus said, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind. He's literally looking and he's seeing, how the mind works to put together the character, how we, unfold within ourselves throughout the course of our life. And then he's saying that we can do this intentionally and with precision. Okay, we can get really good at this, and we can be very, very precise at how we actually build ourselves and prepare ourselves, to take on life and to make our objectives a real thing. You understand what I'm saying? So that right there to me is, more, it's the most important part, that's going to help us really understand, the instructions that come later. Really understand that in our mind, we are actually handling these tools. We are actually intentionally, driving particular truths into certain places. You understand what I'm saying? So that's something that jumped out to me.
Islam. And just understanding that a tool is for the effectiveness. These things are supposed to enhance your abilities. So when we're looking at these tools in the workshop of the mind, one of the things you have to understand is that, it takes a focus on these things. When you're entertaining a hammer, when you're entertaining the thought of a hammer, what you're entertaining is its use. And then what you're doing is you're actually looking at what happens in their repetitive nature of a hammer. It drives the nail in, holds the parts together, things of that nature. It makes it so that things are pushed together and they remain there. So when we start to relate repetition and things of that nature to a use of the hammer, it makes it a lot easier for people to comprehend their powers, their ability. So I have the ability by using the inner hammer to actually make certain understandings and truths and things of that nature a part of every part of the inner workings of my mind. But it lets me know that the tool I would use is the hammer, aka repetition. and things of that nature. So it's a method in which we introduce abilities of man to man, right? That's part of wisdom. A sensing of the powers of the self are very necessary.
That's right. We use the square to measure all our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way and make the corners of our conduct square. All right. We use the square to measure all our lines. All right. Now that's important. You know, he said we're going to make sure we're going to pull this square out before we take and step in and direction, before we do anything. We're going to measure all of our lines, Mo. All right. We're going to make sure that what we're doing is right. We're going to make sure that what we're doing is in line with the process, is in line with the direction that we are in, is in line with our principles. All right. Because this is what's going to make sure that the conduct is square. All right. Now, this is so very important. This is so very important because me specifically, I was a various and wavering young man. You know, one day you might have met me on one day, and I probably could have been the best person that you had ever met. One day you could have met me the next day or even the next hour, and you would have been like, "What in the mother freak is wrong with this guy?" You know, various and wavering. And I had no standard. I had no square. I had nothing, you know, to keep myself, you know, constant. You know what I mean? I was stepping on and off the path, and I didn't even know that the path was there. You know, I was never intentionally on the right path. You understand me? I was never intentionally on the right path. I wasn't. You know. So he said that we use the square to measure all our lines. So
stumbled upon it.
I stumbled upon it. Mo, I stumbled upon the Moorish Temple of America.
It is.
Creative faith is real.
That's how it happens. There's a reason why they say, there's a reason why they say stumble upon it. Rarely do we walk upon the truth smooth. Right? We fall and bump our head up against the truth first.
That's that part, Mo. That part, Mo. You know. So that square or that standard. You know, the Prophet Noble Ali said that free national standards. That's one of the things that makes a man and a nation. You know what I mean? To stay on our square, to stay squared up. You know, that's something that we do. We have to measure all our lines, though. You know, we have to be careful and really and be intentional. You know. Is here. He says we use the compass to draw the circles around our passions and desires to keep them in the bounds of righteousness. The compass. Come on, tell me about the compass.
Islam.
Hey, remember we did this in the crib? We had this same lesson in the crib.
Okay, listen. First and foremost, we're not talking about any directional compass. You know, to Allah belongs the north, south, east, and west. When we're talking about the compass, we're talking about that compass that you used to use in school. One side probably had a point on it. The other side, you put your pencil in and clamped it down, and you opened it up to a desired angle. You put the point down, and then when you moved it and maneuvered it, it to a perfect circle. All right, so now you can get a visual of this. And what happens is this. That circle plays the role of a boundary. Not only a boundary of what keeps something in, but also a boundary for things that should be kept out. Here specifically, we're talking about keeping something in. We're going to start there. And what are we keeping in? To keep our passions and desires within the bounds of moderation, within the bounds of righteousness. So that line acts as the law. You do not cross that line, okay, or else justice will take its course. And why is it that we have to have these boundaries? You know, what if I have a passion for taking care of my children? What if I have a desire to give my woman, my wife, nice things and things of that nature? Well, a passion of taking care of the children in and of itself is not a problem. A desire to give your wife life, nice things is not a problem in itself. However, if these passions and desires are not kept within certain boundaries, you might find good reason to, I don't know, let's say, rob a bank for your child. Oh man, I got to do what I got to do. You might find good reason to because this is what I told myself this almost 20 years ago, brother Pennington Bey. This is how we met in the Dismal Crypt. So, the problem wasn't a passion to provide for the child and things of that nature, but it's what will I do, based on the urgings of this passion, and what will I refrain from doing based on the urgings of this passion. Islam. So the passion and the desire in and of itself isn't your problem. But when you are not drawing circles, aka creating boundaries, okay, by which you can govern your thoughts, words, and deeds and stay within, the parameters of righteousness, uprightness, right? That which is correct. That becomes an issue. So when we say use the compass, what we're saying is discipline yourself. Right? Surround you. The line should be the laws. For Moorish American Muslim, the highest principles known to man, which are also laws, are love, true peace, freedom, and justice. So regardless of what my passion is and what my desire is, I'm going to coat or draw a circle around my movements to make sure that they stay within the boundaries of these principles, thereby using the compass. Islam.
We talked about this in Sunday school. Because this is what using that compass allows for you to do. Once you get your passions and desires within the bounds of righteousness, now you can go after those passions and desires with everything you got, man. Because you know that you're moving right.
That's right.
You can give it everything you got. You are within divine law now. Okay. And when you talk about giving it everything you got, remember that within man is all the potencies of Allah. So you got a lot to throw at what you want, bro. You got a lot to throw at it. You understand me? All right. So he says now, we use the axe to cut away the knotty, useless, and ungainly parts and make the character symmetrical. This was a tool that I had to use a lot when first joining the Moorish Science Temple of America. I had to get that axe out and whack off a lot of bad habits. I smoked. I drank into intoxicated. I mean, I was in jail, blacking out 4 times a week. That's how much I was drinking. You understand me? I had so many bad habits. That I had to whack them off. I had to get that axe out and cut them off, and cut them off, and cut them off. And that's a process, so mentally understanding, how this actually works, it allowed for me to clean myself up. And I'm still using the axe. I'm still using the axe. I constantly, every morning when I wake up and get out of my bed, I got to use that compass, especially now that I'm out here, because life be lifing. Life be lifing, Mo. It be lifing. We be going through things. And just like you said, we have a passion for society. Demonstrate, Mo.
I wanted to point something out also about this axe. Prior to the axe, we hear the compass. We draw circles around passions and desires, keeping within the bounds of moderation, righteousness, things of that nature. So what happens? People say, well, okay, I'm going to do something that's of no true use to my health from a mental or physical standpoint, no true use to the health of the environment outside of myself or anybody else, right? And they say, but I'm going to do it moderately. So I, for example, I go from smoking a whole pack of cigarettes a day to now, because of what the Moors told me, I'll go ahead and smoke 10 cigarettes a day. And so that'll only equal a whole pack in 2 days. So now I'm progressing. Wrong. That's not what the Moorish American Muslims told you. Certain things go inside the circle, but then there's another tool called the axe, because some things offer you no nutritional value at all. And these things, ungainly, naughty, useless. When we say the word useless, that's the same as saying evil. All right, because when we say useful, we mean good. So that which deteriorates your health, things of that nature, casts a shadow over your character, which life is spent to build the pinnacle. I mean, the pinnacle of what life is spent to build is the temple of perfected man. Your character is one of these things that I mean, come on here now. So one of the things I want to point out when we're talking about the axe and the compass working together, don't think that you can draw a circle around that which offers you absolutely positively no nutritional value and say, well, the Moors taught me that as long as I do whatever it is in moderation, I'm using the tools in the workshop of the mind. That would be false. That would be false. So you have to evaluate, what am I doing that has to be cut off? All right, because if you had cancer in your body and the doctors went in with that syringe and told you, look, we can remove 100% or we can just go ahead and remove 90 and call it moderation. Would you like 10% of the cancer to stay? So there are certain things, when we draw a circle around some things, you know what I'm saying, we have to understand that the axe is used to get rid of that which is not useful at all. Islam.
That's right. That's right. The naughty, useless, and ungainly parts. Right. We use the hammer to drive home the truth and pound it in until it is a part of every part. All right. Now this instruction just made that hammer very specific. It said to drive home the truth, not to drive home falsehood, not to drive home, any old thing, to drive home the truth. If it ain't the truth, then we not pulling the hammer out. Islam, Mo. Islam, peace and love, Mo.
Islam.
I'm staying, Mo. I'm finna stay. I'm finna finish breaking down this chapter.
Listen. Just so the people know, because they don't know what's going on. I sent a message to the brother, let him know I have to attend to some family matters. It is a blessing to be here on this podcast. First and foremost, it's a blessing to be here on this podcast with the brother. Words cannot truly describe, the adoration I have for these works. All praise be to Allah. Honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali for introducing us to, this saving power. Honors to all of the listeners who are here this evening listening, because you could have been somewhere else doing something else, but instead you've taken time out of your schedule to hear and in your comments potentially convey the truth that can assist someone in saving themselves from unwholesome conditions. And specifically speaking on the topic of this evening, talking about the workshop of the mind and things of that nature, we're talking about going inside and actually building and working out and constructing and maintaining and so forth and so on, things where it all begins. It all begins in you, and these tools have to be introduced to you so that you can be about your Father's work the same way the Prophet Jesus was. And it is because of, the brother here, the master student Maurice Pennington Bey, that we are sitting here on this particular podcast and revealing these lessons the way we are. So again, I do have to excuse myself, but all praise be to Allah for the thoughts of Allah, and honors to the brother Maurice Pennington Bey, master student. Peace and blessings, Mo.
Islam, Mo. Peace and love. Because Cake Love here, what type of emojis is these? What type of emojis is these you done put up here? Okay, let me say this. For those who are watching on Facebook, normally, people make comments, and I like to put the comments up on the screen, so everybody can see the comments and see what's going on. But for whatever reason, Facebook is not showing the profile images and on my StreamYard, and they got this image, and it just looks like a European person. You know what I mean? A silhouette. Like, I'm gonna show y'all like this one. You see that? And I really don't appreciate that image, not much at all. So that's the reason why I I haven't been putting, the brothers and sisters comments up on the screen the way I normally do. All right. Okay. So now since I'm just here by myself and I'm fixing to get ready to build with y'all on the rest of this chapter, and the link is in the chat. If you see the link, you want to come up and build. All you gotta do is click on the link. We come up and build on these. I am a Moorish master student. I do absolutely love to learn. I absolutely love to learn. And we use the hammer to drive home the truth and pound it in until it is a part of every part. Coming into the Moorish Science Temple of America, this was one of the first lessons that we learned. We learned it and we learned it in Sunday school. How we would go over the one-on-ones. Who made you? Allah. Who is Allah? Allah, the Father of the universe. So we see him. Where's this place we can meet him? These keys were pounded into our mental. All right. And we call them keys affectionately in the Moorish Science Temple of America. We call our one-on-one keys because keys open doors. And, just from learning, that Allah actually made us and what that means, we were taught, this is the way I came up in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And some of the Moors, can relate to this. We were always taught that the Prophet Noble Ali would ask us, who made you? And then it was upon us to go and find out, well, why did Allah make you? What did Allah actually make when he made you? When did Allah make you? And how did he make you? And we would, go further and answer these questions. And that's how we would actually build up our knowledge of self and our knowledge of God and our relationship with God. Because he goes further and he asks us, well, who is Allah? Allah, the one who made us. Who is he? You know what I mean? So then you say, well, why is he? Because he made us our God. Just because he made us, does that make him our God? And these questions we would ask ourselves, and we would, really, really seek and search out the answer. And I'm here to tell y'all that over the course of my career in the Moorish Science Temple of America, some of these questions that if you ask me today, I'm gonna give you an answer different from the answer that I would have gave you back then in the past when I first came into the Moorish Science Temple of America. And it's a high likelihood that if you ask me these same questions 10 years from now, that answer might change, because we are ever unfolding. That's the whole purpose is for us to unfold, but to help us unfold, we use this hammer to drive home the truth. Okay. And the truth is what makes us free. Free of what? Maurice Pennington Bey. What is it that we're trying to get free of? What do we need to be made free from? We need to be made free from a lot of things. Okay. The Prophet Noble Ali talks about us being slaves to sin. Okay. To be a slave to sin, to be somebody, who is consistently and constantly doing this thing that they know they shouldn't be doing, consistently and constantly engaging in activities that they know they shouldn't be engaging in. You understand me? That's a slave. And then, we become slaves to certain relationships. We become slaves. There's a whole lot of things that we need to be made free from. All right. So over and over again, we start to pound in these truths, these proper instructions, reality when we actually need it. So that's something that, we use the hammer for that. And this hammer, because, other ones, they use their hammer. They say they use the hammer to build and to destroy. Well, nowhere in the Holy Koran or the Moorish Science Temple of America does it teach us to use the hammer to destroy anything. It doesn't say that. All right. So it's not the same. It's not the same tool, and it does not serve the same purpose. All right. That's important. That's very important. All right. It say we use the plane to smooth the rough, uneven surface of joint and block and board that go to build the temple for the truth. Listen. Okay. A lot of us have come to where we are by traveling down roads that were rocky. Okay. We have had to cut off all sorts of people who initially, when these individuals were a part of our life, We thought that they brought value to our life. But then we learned that they were really bloodsuckers, that these individuals weren't bringing value to our life, but they were actually devaluing our life. They were taking and not giving, okay? A lot of things had to change over the course of time, okay? And I'm talking about since we've been on the path. Now, I'm not speaking about the time before Islam. I'm talking about since we have come to Islam and start to strive toward purity in life. Okay, in that time, certain things had to be made smooth because initially they were rocky. Initially, they were lumpy. Well, we used the plane to smooth the rough, uneven surface of the joint, the block, and the board that go to build the temple. Okay, it has to happen. It has to happen. So just like we change our mind, sometimes we got to change where we live more. We got to change our address. You understand me? We got to change our cars. We got to change things need to change. Don't be afraid to change. Change happens. We live on a plane of things made manifest. Everything we see and observe is falsehood. It's going to change. That's to be expected. It's to be respected as well. And you have the tool, the plane. Use it. All right. It say the chisel, line, the plummet, and the saw all have their uses in the workshop of the mind. Okay. They all have their uses in the workshop of the mind. We're building a complex thing, a thing that has many parts, a thing that has many dimensions, a thing that ultimately will serve many purposes. Okay. So we're going to need a lot of tools. All right. If I go to work and I don't have my wire strippers, I'm an electrician. I can't do my job without having wire strippers, y'all. Okay? When you start to want to build up your character, you need some maxims of truth. You're going to need that. You're also going to need some good, nourishing food. What we eat is important. You're going to need some exercise. You're going to need some sleep. Okay? You need those things. All right. So all these tools have their uses in the workshop of the mind. It's saying, then this ladder with its trinity of steps, faith, hope, and love, Islam. Right? On it, we climb up to the dome of purity and life. Faith is what we know to be truth. Faith is what we know to be truth. Listen, Moors. A lot of us betray ourselves. We know that certain things are wrong. We know that certain paths lead us to places where we don't want to go. And still, we do those things that are wrong. And still, we travel those paths that lead us to places where we don't want to be. Okay? Well, we're learning here that we need to take a step up on those things that we know to be true. Things that we know to be true. Put your feet on something solid. Don't try to build your temple on sand like the brother Sheik Maurice just demonstrated. If you build your temple on sand, it's going to fall down. It don't matter how pretty it looks, all the elaborate, construction work that's done. The architecture can be incredibly wonderfully to place your eyes on. But if it's built on sand, if it's built on an unstable foundation, it will fall. It will crumble. Okay? So place your feet on that which you know to be true. Let me tell y'all something. I just came home from prison. If I did not prepare myself to come out here and make a way for myself, do y'all know what was going to happen? Do y'all know what was going to happen as soon as the bills needed to be paid? As soon as my loved ones needed me to come through and to provide, y'all know what I was going to do? I was going to do what I know that would allow for me to pay them bills and to provide. See, that was something that I knew. That was a truth that I knew about myself years before I got out of prison. So I took time for years, 16 years to be exact, to prepare myself, to face life, to prepare myself, for the moments when things were not going to go my way and where they was not going to go as planned. I had to get ready for those things. All right, because the truth is, if I was not ready, I was going to be right back on that road, leading right back to where I don't want to be. Okay. So the very first step on the ladder that gets us to the dome of purity in life is faith. And then it says hope. I remember, because in the Holy Koran, it tells us that thus hope shall ever be his beacon light. So even in the dark, when we out there in the middle of the chaos of the world, when we, for the moments where we get lost, when we get lost in our old ways, our old habits, maybe we've been traveling with some people who we ain't had no business traveling with, stuff happens. But when we turn towards hope, it's a light, it's a beacon light. It leads us back to the surface. All right. Now, one of the definitions in that same dictionary, back when I first joined the Moorish Science Temple of America, that same American Heritage Fourth Edition dictionary, one of the definitions for hope is confidence. All right? Confidence. See, when we are confident in a thing, we have a strong belief that we are capable, or that the thing is capable of delivering. All right? So now, in order to develop confidence in oneself, especially, I'm gonna keep on using my prison experience, because it was that experience that allowed for me to gather an understanding of this degree. Okay. In order for me to garner confidence that I would be able to come out here in a world that I have been away from for 20 years, that had changed so much, that is no longer the same world that I left. In order for me to be confident that I can exist and be successful out here in this world, I had to academically prepare myself as best as possible. Therefore, I can be confident in my knowledge. I could be confident in my willingness to be diligent despite whatever obstacles I had to face. The Holy Koran, again, boy, we have been guaranteed a couple things by God. We have been guaranteed that there are many folks, as a matter of fact, unnumbered, that we will have to face. God, He guaranteed us that. So as a Moorish scientist, this is something that I know. So I had to prepare myself in order to meet these foes and to overcome them. All right. Now, I'm not preparing myself having an actual hands-on experience, because I've been taken off the field. So I had to academically prepare myself. I had to academically prepare myself so well that I will have absolute confidence in my knowledge. Because the truth is, if I was not prepared, I would get right back on that path, lead me right back to somewhere that I don't want to be. That's the truth. Right? So the second step, hope has to be developed. Faith has to be developed. Faith ain't a belief in things unseen. That's garbage. That's garbage. Ain't nobody finna go up there on those sky-rise building and jump off and thinking or praying that Allah gonna send some angels to catch you in the middle of the air and keep you from dying. The only way you're gonna jump off is because you want to die, and you know that if you jump off, that you're gonna change forms when you hit the ground. But you ain't jumping off of that building because you got faith that you're gonna survive that leap. Not if you sane. So that which we have been taught that faith is over the course of our life up until today is bull jump. And we don't teach it in the Moorish Science Temple of America. We teach ones to place their faith in the things that they know are true. And what we know are true is those things that we have tested. That we have tested ourselves. Those things that we have bear witness to with our physical senses. All right? And that's the first step. I can place my feet on that and be confident that I won't fall because I know it's the truth. I can place my feet on my own confidence or confidence in those who have proven themselves to me. That is hope. The last step is the easiest one to take. It's the first two steps is hard. But the last step, that's the easiest one to take. More love, Allah is love. Allah is love. It's easy. It's easy for us to take that step. That's God, man. Allah is the Father of the universe. That's our dad. You understand me? We trust him with us. We trust Allah. We will bare our soul. We will cut ourselves open for God. Right? That's easy. But them first steps is difficult. That's where the science comes into action. We got to learn what we're going to place our faith in. We have to develop ourselves so that we can trust and be confident that we are capable. Okay? The Prophet Noble Ali, he teaches us that we are all born with an unlimited capacity for progress. Okay? It's an unlimited capacity, a potential. It needs to be developed. One of the issues with the Moorish Science Temple of America right now is that a whole lot of people who are full of potential have been placed in leadership roles. Now, potential don't mean you're ready. That potential has to be developed. Okay? And on the 12-step ladder, we ascend until we reach the pinnacle of that which life is spent to build, the temple of perfected man. And on the 12-step ladder, we ascend until we reach that which life is spent to build, the temple of perfected man. Now, let me tell y'all something about this particular degree right here. It informs us that we will be climbing this ladder our entire physical existence. Okay? It said that we ascend to that which life is spent to build. So for everybody who think that they done arrived and think that they got there and think that they done, I done climbed up the 12-step ladder, I'm fruition. I am the man. I'm the God man on earth. You know what I mean? I'm made grand Sheik. I'm this, that, and the third. I got all the degrees. I understand all of the rituals and all that. Man, you tripping. You tripping. Your thoughts are wrong. That's not Moorish science. All right? This is a process. It's a process. We are here on this plane of things made manifest to be perfect. I was just talking to a Moorish American yesterday. And over again, I was expressing to this particular one that you telling me how long you've been in the Moorish Science Temple of America and how many Sunday schools you done instructed and all of this stuff does not prove nothing. You ain't telling me nothing. Time never was. This little short span of time that we spend in this physical form is nothing. Let me show you an example. How much time did the Prophet Noble Ali spend with the first generation of Moorish Americans? How much time was he with his shepherd, Mila'il? How much time did he spend? Not very much at all. So how many times are these Moors telling us, my teacher was German Bey, my teacher was Cook Bey, my teacher was such and such and such. Islam, all praises due to Allah. And yes, I do admire being in your position. I wish I could have sat down and had a conversation with these ones. I wish I could have opened up the Quran and broke down these instructions with these ones. Man, that would have been an immense honor. As a matter of fact, I would be honored to sit down with ones who sat down with these ones and break down these holy instructions. But guess what I don't want to do? I don't want to spend a minute with you if you're going to be sitting here trying to tell me how your time spent with them makes you superior or how your understanding is now superior because you spent some time. I'm not trying to hear that. All of us got God in us. Every last one of us. Understanding is the gnosis of the ought and of the know, the falsehood and the truth. It's a gnosis. It don't come from the outside. It originates on the inside where Allah is in the heart. Okay, so every last one of us got the capacity to learn things straight from God. We have the capacity to be taught by God. All right, so don't tell me that because you sat down at the feet of some man that your understanding is superior. No, it's not. I am the master student and I'm standing on that. I'm standing on that. The principles of learning are important to me. They are important to me, and none greater than the principle of modesty. Okay, because it tells us that if we want it, at first we have to bow ourselves down at her footstool, man. We have to bow ourselves down. We have to be humble. We have to be humble. So don't come to me conceited and all puffed up and think I'm supposed to honor what you know. As a matter of fact, I don't even care what you know because you're useless. All right? The symbolic meaning of carpenter's tools. Carpenter's tools, more. Okay? Now, everybody, man, it's work enough for all. Work enough for all. All right? So we are not, well, I am not trying to belittle the work that anybody does. I'm not. I'm just trying to make it clear and plain that in the Moorish Science Temple of America, our objective is to produce Moorish scientists. Okay? Moorish scientists. Moorish scientists are individuals who are skilled in many crafts. Now, each individual, because of their own passions and desires, okay, because of the way that they see themselves and the things that they enjoy doing, their expertise is going to be what they enjoy doing. Like me personally, this is what I love to do. So no matter all of the things that I know how to do, all of the things that I done went to school for, this is what I love to do. This is my passion. Nothing is more important than the Moorish Science Temple of America. Nothing to me. That don't have to be the case for you. Okay? There is work enough for all. The work that Masons do, the work that Moorish scientists do, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the very first Moorish American to ever walk the earth. The very first. All right? The founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali didn't say that I am teaching my people. He said we are teaching our people. That's our duty. It's our job. Okay? Moorish science is not speculative. We don't speculate what this is about. This ain't guesswork. The reason why we sit down and spend so much time studying and breaking these things down is so that we can be right and exact and be efficient and become proficient in the use of our souls. Because this is the true economy of human life. The true economy of human life is man's abilities and capacities. That's the true economy. Those are the resources that have the most value. All right? And in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we want to teach ones to call these into action for the benefit of the whole. The creation and the fall of man, that ain't just the creation and the fall of you. It ain't just the creation and the fall of I. It's the creation and the fall of all of man. All right? So when it talks about there is no failure for the human soul, that's all of us. Okay? So in order for this demonstration to actually come to a cease and a desist, then we have to all grow and unfold. We can't just allow for a thing to grow retarded. When it say in the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science of America, chapter number 23, watch the benefits, inclinations, set up right in his youth. Let no evil habit gain strength with his deeds. Okay, so when you got if you a farmer, if you got a plant and that plant grows up and it starts to lean, you're gonna put some stilts on it so that it can grow up straight and powerful and strong. Okay, so that's all I'm trying to do. We're breaking down this particular demonstration and emphasizing that the Prophet Noble Jew Ali was not a Mason. He's a Moorish Science. Okay, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we teach deductive reasoning, we teach Masonry. You know, that don't make us Masons. In the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we got the symbolic meaning of carpenter's tools. That don't make us a carpenter. That don't make us carpenters. We are Moorish scientists. Okay, you got the manic law in there too. That don't make us psychologists. We are Moorish scientists. All right, and this is important. And this is important. You know, because you got ones who want to incorporate the principles of individuals who we were supposed to be giving them back what their forefathers had developed for them and going and returning back to the state of mind of our own forefathers' divine creed and principles. To our forefathers' divine creed and principles. All right? Now, yes, our ancient forefathers developed the science of masonry, but they ain't developed an institution. That's for them. The same way Europeans don't come and join the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's the same thing, man. It's the same thing. And it's important. It's very important. All right? We have the Sisters Auxiliary. A man don't preside over the Sisters Auxiliary the way they do the Eastern Stars. We don't do that. The leader of my particular grand body is the Grand Governess Crystal Glover Eel. All right? She is our esteemed leader. Ain't no way, we're not, oh, she's a woman, she can't lead. That's foolishness, man. If y'all know this woman, then you know better than that. All right? Now, she might be second to none. Indeed, there are many, many, many women today, and we have examples across time moving backward to time immemorial of women who made incredible leaders who don't need no man to preside over them. Why are you in the room? These ones is in the room making sure that they don't rise up. Make sure that they don't uncover the secret degrees. All right? That's why they did. But we don't do that. We are the revealers of the light, not the keepers of the light. We trying to take man out of the darkness and bring man into the marvelous light. That's what we here for. That's our job. We want to see all the man walk in the light and be the light. All the man. That's why we out here teaching love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice universally. So you can't confuse the two. See, these ones, they like to say, well, if they don't know, they don't know. What? The Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America said, he endowed thee with wisdom. Had he enlightened thy mind with the knowledge of truth. Communicated to the ignorant for their instruction. Communicated to the wise for thy own improvement. Now, that's the opposite of what these ones just said. It's the opposite, the total opposite. So why would the Prophet Noble Jew Ali instruct us to communicate it to the ignorant for their instruction and then could communicate it to the wise for our own improvement? If he came from an institution and an organization that said, no, the ignorant is made to be governed by the intelligent. Come on, get the freak out of here. Y'all want some slaves. And any people that want slaves don't want to do the work. You don't want to do the work. All right? We don't get down like that. We don't get down like that. That ain't what the Prophet Noble Jew Ali raised us to do. That ain't how he raised us to do. Ye are the children of one father provided for by his kin. We made in the image after the likeness of our Father. Think like our Father. We look like our Father. We move like our Father. We abide in our Father's house. It's our Father's house, built by Him. If you look around this place, you see that He was a master of many crafts. Master of many crafts. Prophet Noble. Young man, think about that. 27 years old, founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. 27 years old, man. Young person. You know what type of inner work he had to do to develop the type of discipline and the type of compassion and the type of love? I mean, let's forget the knowledge. Let's look at the character. Let's look at the virtues that he possessed. Okay? Because these are the things that we have to build. Because it says that the attainment of virtues, he accounted as the highest learning. He accounted as the highest, like the attainment of virtue. We bear witness. We see it in the Prophet Noble Ali. As a young man, so selflessly giving himself, sacrificing himself for a public unstable and ungrateful. Look how they lying on him. Look how they lying on him. After all he did for us, look how they lying on him. After all he did for us, where would you be without the Prophet Noble Ali? And then to turn around and lie on him, it's ridiculous. But he knew that it would happen. And he did not let it stop him. He did not let it deter him from doing his Father's work. All right. For conferring these degrees. All right. The shepherd said that in one night, that the Prophet Noble Ali had took him through all the ways of life. In one night. Come on. That's deep. That's deep. He had conferred all these degrees on him. He had gave him everything that it would take in order for him to do his job as shepherd. Not as Supreme Grand Sheik, Grand Governor, the other officers that he had, but as shepherd. Watch over us. Make sure that we stay safe. Come on, man. Wolves coming. All type of predators come out. Try to snatch up a sheep. Yeah. So I ain't gonna front. I'm just gonna keep it 100. Now I don't appreciate it. I see it as the most incredible insult. I also see, ones guilty of such thing as insignificant. I see them as in the way. And I look at individuals who empower them to tell these lies. And I feel sorry for all those who are led by these individuals. I feel sorry for them. I hope and I pray that Allah be merciful. I hope and I pray that ones, recognize truth and come away from that demonstration with the speed called thought before it's too late. And they are led over the edge of some cliff blindly. Dangerous. You understand me? They're dangerous because they are influential. People believe them. That's dangerous. It's deadly. So that's about it. It's time to y'all know what I do. I just hit the end stream button. There I go again. Like, share. What else? You gotta like, you gotta share, you gotta subscribe. All my social media platforms, my YouTube, everything, to slow down, because I haven't been able to, be as consistent as I was at one point with, coming on these platforms and, you know, communicating it to the ignorant and sitting down with the master students and whoever else, you know, we all, you know, the master student is a movement, man. You know what I mean? The Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you know, that's the teacher. He's the only master teacher. You know, everybody else who claim to be master teachers, man, they lying. You know, they just lying. You know, I don't know why they doing it. They lying though, y'all. They lying. You know, real talk. So yeah, there you go. Thank you, Seekers. Thank you, Seekers. Like, share, subscribe in that order. Like it, share, subscribe if you want to. If not, I ain't tripping on that either. Peace and love.